So I want to talk about values today. What do you value? Most people, I think, would say, I value my family. I value my relationship with God, if you're religious. I value my home. I value my job. I value my friendships. And those are all good things, right? But we live in a country that has, I think the downside of the country is that it's so focused on monetary value. I mean, think about that. Who do you really respect? You can respect people that don't have money, but we're all kind of learning to respect money, right? If I see it all the time, right? If you are a person, an average person, and you call somebody, you'll get a return call somewhere along the way. But if you're somebody that's worth a couple $1,000,000, you usually get an immediate phone call if the phone isn't immediately picked up. Have you ever witnessed that? Absolutely, right? If you call somebody from the standpoint of being a client or a potential purchaser of a product, they're going to give you more attention than if you're just somebody who just wants to ask some questions, right? Because you're a potentially for sure sale. But when I think of values myself, I think that a lot of them are misplaced. You know, I had just written a little article just a day or two ago talking about values placed on politicians. Now, I'm not bagging on all politicians. It's like sports athletes. You know, it's only the morons that usually get written about in the newspaper and the media. There's lots of great athletes, I'm sure, great people that make a lot of money. Good for them, you know. And there's, I'm sure, a lot of great politicians. It's only ones that do stupid, radical things that we read about. Then we get mad at everybody. But I want people to understand something. Placing value in a politician is not a leader of the country. They're not. They're a representative of their district, whether that district be a city or a county or a state. So that representative can be replaced. As a matter of fact, they should always be replaced. They will be replaced now with death. But, you know, term limits, I think, are smart on all counts. Even if somebody's great, there's somebody else that they can bring up to keep going with their values. And it allows people to come in because our country is a government of, by, and for the people. You can't put somebody in there for 40 years who suddenly becomes a millionaire and loses track of what it is to be the ordinary person who's struggling to make a living and raise their children, because you won't remember that anymore. That's the idea of a government of the people. But what we have to place our values in, my belief as an American citizen, is the Constitution. Because you see, it's the only thing that makes America the greatest country in the world. It really is. It's not God. God is all around the world, right? God created the universe. God gave mankind the earth to govern. So as the earth fails, it's not God that's failing. He put people in control. And as we pull away from God and allow people that have no faith in God to make decisions, well, what do you know? We start going broke. There's greed, there's lust, and there's all these awful things because we want to pretend like God has nothing to do with the country, even though his name is all over the buildings and the documents of the founding of the country. So value really should be placed on the Constitution. And when you talk about a politician, any politician that starts running to try to get into government on a basis of violating a right, whether it's free speech or possession of a firearm or due process, when somebody runs on the basis of violating the Constitution to the government, when they take their oath of office, when they win the election, how can they do that? They can't. They're running on a basis of violating the Constitution. And if you have somebody that's in office that decides that they're going to do something that violates the Constitution, they should be recalled. If not, then the people who put them into office are either stupid or as corrupt as that individual. Understanding that the Constitution is for all of us. If you don't agree with anything I agree with, we should at least agree that we should have the right to keep safe and to say what we want to say. And that's what the Constitution does. You see, we've been misled to believe that politicians are leaders. They're not. They are only representatives of the real leaders, which are the people. And the bottom line is, what are we going to do about it? Well, we have to focus our values on what's important. If one side decides that the violation of one constitutional amendment is right, then they're foolish, because then the other side might decide that another constitutional amendment should be in their favor. But educated people should recognize that every amendment to the Constitution is important because it allows us freedom. And it's important that everybody that's a U.S. citizen represents or understands one thing, one very important thing about the Constitution that I think most forget. The Constitution does not subject people to control. It subjects the government to be controlled. So when you see a government official talking against the Constitution, any of it, free speech or gun possession or due process or anything else, they are violating the Constitution, which is in place only to keep them in check. And nobody should support anybody that wants to violate the Constitution of the United States, because that one document is what makes our country better and the most livable and the one that everybody wants to come to over anything else. And that people on both sides of the line need to understand and protect. Have a good morning.